ESG investing has become a very popular theme in the past decade, but especially in the past year, as more investors want to invest along with their environmental, social, and governance beliefs. But there is still a lot of confusion about what it is and what isn't an ESG investment. Investopedia's editor-in-chief, Caleb Silver, joins us this afternoon with more. Caleb, let's start with the basics. What is ESG?
So good to be with you, and we love ESG. This is environmental, social, and governance-themed investing, and it's become super popular, as you mentioned, in the past decade, very popular in the past year. But this is really investors investing along with their conscience. So on the E side, that's environmental. How a company impacts environmental factors like pollution, energy, carbon emissions, climate change. Social, how does a company manage its relationships with employees, its suppliers, its clients, its stakeholders? How is it as a corporate citizen? And then governance, its leadership. How is executive pay? Is it equal? Is there equanimity among pay ranks and between genders? What are the internal controls on the governance side? And do shareholders actually have a say in these companies? So that's what the ESG stands for. You'll see a lot of different wrappers, SRI, impact investing. ESG is very particular, but also very popular, Jill.
You recently surveyed your newsletter readers about what issues matter to them most in ESG investing. What did you learn?
Well, we surveyed along with our partners at Tree Hugger, which is one of our sister sites, about what issues they care about most. And so many of them want to align with their values. Younger investors are particularly attuned to this. They want to invest along with their values. They think that ESG principles will be standard in the future. They want to support causes they believe in. They want to vote with their money and invest in the companies that they believe are doing the right thing. They also believe, many of them, that it's a profitable strategy. For years, Jill, many folks were wondering if ESG, you might have to take a loss to invest with your heart. Not so much anymore. It's become so mainstream. And then a lot of companies don't want to invest in the companies that don't align with their values. So it's a way to screen out companies in your portfolio. So those are the key reasons. It differs by age, but the younger, especially the younger cohorts, they want to invest along with their values, and their values are more and more along with ESG themed investing.
You asked your readers for their favorite ESG stocks. How much of a difference did you see in terms of their perception, which stocks were aligned with ESG principles and which were not?
Yeah, great question. So a lot of folks were kind of winging it when it came to choosing their ESG investments, whether that was stocks or ETFs. They were associating brand recognition with ESG related themes. And in some cases that doesn't match up. So you really have to do the homework on if you're choosing an ESG stock or an ETF or an index fund, what's actually in it. So among the most popular choices, Jill, Tesla at the top of that list. Tesla, obviously an electric vehicle maker, obviously not using fossil fuels to power its cars, but on the S and the G part, the social and the governance part, they don't rank very well if you look at their ranking among ESG screeners, and there's a lot of them out there. Apple too, very popular among our readers and Tree Huggers readers. People think the company is a good corporate citizen. They think that they do well in terms of treating some of their employees well. But if you look at the broader governance issues, some of the issues with their suppliers in China and elsewhere, that makes them score kind of in the middle of the pack. And also the disposal of a lot of the hard waste that they use in terms of the components that go into iPhone and iPad and Mac manufacturing, not great at that. So even though those were among the top choices, if you look at how these companies actually do in ESG rankings, not so great. They're right in the middle of the pack. So folks have to do a lot more homework to figure out what is actually an ESG performing asset and what isn't.
Caleb, how can investors learn more about ESG investing and how to screen for ESG stocks?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great screeners out there. At the Nasdaq, on your website, you have a great ESG tool and a screener, and you could talk to folks in the research department there about screening in or out companies you want in your portfolio or out. So there's that. Morningstar has its own great ESG screener, of course. And then there's others, including MSCI, which has a ESG index. You could put in almost any company in the US stock market, even around the world, and get an ESG ranking. How do they rank on the environmental front, the social front, and the governance front? So there's lots of ways for investors to get smart about it, and a lot of resources out there. The investing industry has to do a better job of making them front and center because there's so much money and so much interest in this investing theme. Bloomberg thinks this is going to be a $54 trillion industry in the next 5 to 10 years, and that could be about half of the size of the equity market.
All right, Caleb, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.